Happy 2019. I love the energy of a brand new year because we're open to more possibilities. This year could be your best year ever, and let's do whatever we possibly can to make it so. Less stress, more money, more time to yourself and your family. And I want to help you do that as best as humanly possible. We're actually going to come out with a new podcast series. It's actually going to be on this show on Eventual Millionaire, but I'm going to be coaching you. Yes. Hopefully you, maybe not you, but you. So if you apply, maybe it can be you. So we're looking for six-figure owners in whatever niche, industry, anything. And I'm going to be coaching you, quote unquote, live, right? And if you're feeling very vulnerable about sharing potentially numbers or anything, we can totally put a cool like superhero mask on you and a voice changer so you sound super awesome. So that way I can give you the advice that you need that will make a huge change in your business for 2019. So if you go to eventualmillionaire.com/laser, LASER. You can apply for that. We're taking 6 amazing business owners, amazing as a human. You don't have to have an amazing business. Don't worry. I will help you make it amazing. Again, it's eventualmillionaire.com/laser.
Potent advice and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to the Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I am Jaime Masters, and today on the show, I have Jonathan Cronstedt. Now, he is the president and partner of Kajabi.com, which is an all-in-one platform that's amazing for both building online courses, marketing. Tons of my friends are on that. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. We're going to have some fun.
Yeah, we are. So I want to go through, because what you guys started out on the all-in-one membership platform at the very, very beginning, you were newer to this. People kept saying Kajabi, and I was like, wait, what did you say? How do you spell that? So can you sort of take me on a trajectory?
We still get that sometimes.
At least you are a name that so many people have heard of before. It is very rare now when I say it. So tell me a little bit about the trajectory of being sort of newer in that space to where we've come now, because there's tons of competition in that space now.
Sure. It's a really interesting market. When we started, and this is going to be almost 9 years ago, there was really nobody doing any element of this idea of selling courses online. The idea of what would be online education was really relegated to early stage ed tech in college or scholastic spaces, or compliance training for large corporations. This idea of an entrepreneur being able to take something that would normally be packaged in CDs, DVDs, and workbooks and be able to deliver it online was kind of crazy. But as broadband internet's gotten better and everything that's now possible, it's far more common. And so what's been interesting is we have evolved along with the industry. That back then it was weird to sell a course. Now courses are available in marketplaces like Udemy and Skillshare, or available in platform spaces like us and others. But also now we're really diving a lot more into the idea of marketing and selling and delivering that information. So versus just being a delivery mechanism back then, we now are a marketing, selling, and delivery application, really moving more into a holistic online business platform. Because the reality of it is, people aren't coming to us because they woke up and thought, boy, I want to sell a course this morning. They're likely coming to us because they want to deliver results for their business. Now, those results may be course delivery. It may be marketing, selling, and delivering the course. But Kajabi is now really at a place where we get to serve all of those needs.
How did you figure that out too? Because you're technically going from, hey, this is our core competency, and now we're actually scooting it over here, which is a totally different, doing marketing is very, very different than just content delivery education, right? And so when you do that, you have to make the very conscious choice to go in a completely different market. What made you make that pivot?
It's interesting. It really for us hasn't been a pivot. It's been more of a gradual building. So I would view it more like a house where you have the foundation for us, which is the content delivery element. That will never change. The idea of a membership site, course content, an immersive digital experience will always be the foundation of what Kajabi delivers. And what we've always envisioned is being able to build on that. So it's certainly one of those things, first rule of business, you always want to, stick with the girl that brought you to the dance. For us, the membership site, course content, that is really our home court. That's where we love to play. What we began to find, though, is that a lot of the needs in this marketplace and the complexity that we have the ability to solve is people get a course platform and they're like, well, now what? I should go get Infusionsoft. I should go get, MailChimp. I should go get, some type of payment gateway. I should go get some type of, blogging software, videos, whatever. It really ends up becoming something where we brought our part of the equation, but the intention was always that as we grew, to be able to solve those needs in the way that we envision this industry should operate, which is really making technological superpowers accessible to people that really aren't using them. And so for us, although we started in the membership site course content area, the vision was always to be able to take our goals for our users and move it into a holistic solution. But obviously, and as you know, many of your users might have, or many of your listeners has probably learned, it's much, much easier to deliver on a smaller scope project and do it masterfully and then look at adding versus we're going to do all of this subpar at the start.
I really appreciate you saying that it was always in the core vision, which is really good to know. But the fact that you only did that little piece, we as entrepreneurs have to still be slapped because we're like, I know, but I really want to what if we do 2 of the pieces at once? Or what if we do, we could do, right? So how long did it actually take you before you could really start adding the other pieces in chunks to the program?
Well, so if you go all the way back to the vision that Kenny originally had almost 9 years ago, it was roughly 6 years of Kajabi Classic, which was really focused as the content delivery, and then only 3 years in what was called New Kajabi, but now is just Kajabi, as a holistic marketing platform, a real online business platform is what we're calling it.
Did you guys know at the beginning that, because there is a million softwares, and what's unfortunate is we end up cobbling them all together, and I have a degree in computers, but most people definitely don't, and I don't even want to spend my time doing some of that stuff. And so was that sort of knowing where the trend was going potentially is why that vision was so big at the beginning?
So I would say that really where the inflection point came was when we split from Kajabi Classic into what is now Kajabi. And that was really viewing 6 years of participating in an industry, watching the industry evolve, watching the industry expand, and seeing all of the ways that it was being used. We, Kenny really sort of saw this inflection point early on and was just bold enough to say, you know what? We see where the industry is going. We see a need for a more holistic platform, and our current classic architecture will not allow us to do all of the things we will want to do. So it really became something that it was first to replace the classic functionality in the new platform and then begin developing on top of it, but really viewing it as a completely different architecture, completely greenfield project of, okay, had we had the knowledge then of what the industry would become, how would we build this to be something that as the industry grows and matures, as the technology and how it's applied changes, having a world where we can continue to grow and change with it. And that's really where this new online business platform, it gives the ability to evolve it, that we can add what we call building blocks, which is really new functionality that not only allows a Kajabi user to have something that they're likely paying somebody else for built in and integrated, but bringing with it all of the power of it being on the same platform, providing automation and everything without all the middleware that's normally required to make things work together.
That's a lot of work, as you know, right? It's insane.
Well,
to
and
actually
that's
redo
really,
that.
I mean, and we're going to be talking a lot about business today because I know that your listeners are normally at that critical juncture in their business where they're beginning to scale, or maybe they've started scaling and are experiencing what scale brings. And for us, we really come from the place where our core belief is the number one killer of success in the online world is complexity. That I can't tell you how many times I meet someone and they'll say, oh, well, I don't use Kajabi. It's like, okay, well, why? And they're like, well, I wanted to be able to split test this page, multivariate 37 ways with a Taguchi methodology. I'm like, yeah, I understand what all those words mean too, but how much have you sold online? They're like, oh, well, I haven't yet. And I'm like, well, of course not, because you're still trying to come up with 37 multivariate ways to split test a page that you've never taken live. And this is a person that I'll see a decade from now, and they're like, man, I am just one more autoresponder away of having the perfect customer architecture. It's like, dude, by the time you get this live, they won't even be buying what you're selling anymore. They'll be onto something totally different. So we really try to, I guess I would say, ruthlessly apply the Pareto principle of the 80-20, where is the 20% of whatever technology that drives 80% of the results, and then make it as simple to apply it as possible.
Well, and that's
really,
the point, right? Well, I just got off of Infusionsoft and switched over to ActiveCampaign because I was like, I had to pay a whole person to do Infusionsoft because even a geek, had to go, how do I can't even split test a subject. What the heck, right? Like,
Well, and I will honestly, I will tell you, Infusionsoft is an amazing platform. I mean, previously in my career, I spent time at Glazer Kennedy. I watched Bill Glazer and Dan Kennedy first popularize this idea of a direct response oriented online marketing software. It was amazing. And the capabilities they have, it is amazing. I mean, it slices, it dices, it juliennes fries, it does everything you can imagine while watching your kids for the weekend. It is so unbelievably feature rich. And the challenge that they have is it does so much that you will meet the vast majority of their users that are either taking this 747 and using it like a go-kart, or you'll meet people that are like, yeah, I've had it for 3 years. I've never built a campaign. Why? Well, because I just open it up, I get super overwhelmed and I bail. It's like, well, but do you have any idea how amazing it is? It's like, yeah, that's why I bought it. And that's why I keep it, because everybody tells me it's amazing, but you never get to the amazingness because you never get to actually implement it.
Because then if you're results oriented, having all the complexity beforehand does nothing potentially unless you know how to use it. So what I want to do is I want to shift. I want to ask you questions about your marketing and what you guys do, because it is a competitive beast right now, right? So especially as you're adding in the new features of Kajabi, what did you do in your marketing to really shift into that?
So it's interesting. We've really focused less on features. Like if you were to meet a lot of people that use us and use us successfully, they'll even be surprised when we're like, oh, have you tried this feature? Like, no, I didn't even know you guys did that. We've never really been, I guess I would call it feature oriented in our marketing. Where we have always come from is we believe that if we deliver more results for our users, the marketing takes care of itself in a lot of ways. So the user success element and the user community is really where we focus the majority of our time in our marketing messaging. It's going to be something that's much more focused on the user's outcome and the desires that they have versus just throwing features at something. Because again, everybody wants the baby, nobody wants the labor pains. And just looking at 342 features that we have, that odds are any other platform you came from or any other 5 platforms you've come from probably have similar features. But those features only matter if you're getting the results from those features. So we really start at the results level and then help people back into those results, leveraging the features of their choosing.
That makes exact sense with what you were just saying about before, if you are really results focused. But what does that mean? So when you're talking about, we let our user experience run for you, you're still running ads, I'm assuming. You're still running, what sort of, on the brass tacks level, what are you actually guys doing on marketing that's pushing those messages forward to make everybody actually buy it instead of just talking about it?
So for us, one of the campaigns that we've had a great amount of success with that we really enjoy is this idea of results in advance. You know, how can you take somebody, add a tremendous amount of value to their business, fast track the success that they're looking for, and really move that forward in a way where they have a transformative experience before they've ever given you any money. And for us, that's been our 28-day challenge. So we offer a 14-day free trial, or you have the ability to then take that and double the trial length to 28 days by taking advantage of the 28-day challenge. And what comes with that is a fairly, I would call it robust experience of, we're going to take you through an email coaching relationship where you're going to create your product, market and sell your product before you ever pay a subscription fee to Kajabi. So the lofty goal of that program is to take you from, hey, I'm excited to be here, to, oh my gosh, I sold my first user on whatever it is you're marketing in that 28-day period, so that before your subscription ever rebills, you are already in the black on your business. So that's something for us that, again, going back to that focus on member success, you can see that the campaign is not designed around, let's make you really good at email autoresponders. The goal of that campaign is, let's get you the result you came for, which is, I want a course live in the world of digital entrepreneurship, and I'd like to get it done as fast as possible. And we're like, well, great. Why don't we get it done before you ever pay us?
Well, that makes perfect sense when you actually think about it that way. Nobody really does that. And the great thing about it on your side is, if they spent that much time and effort building the course, even if they haven't built the course, all the stuff's there. So why would they not pay you to finish it anyway, right? If you've gotten them that far over the hump. I feel like the industry in the course side has been changing a lot. 1 million people have courses, it feels like, on all sorts of the same topic. So if you guys are sort of covering over the marketing, how do you help people sell that first course so they can really feel that results in the win?
Well, you make a great point. If you really look at the idea of, let's call it information, information is highly commoditized. You know, we talk about this a lot in this idea that the information age really never delivered on its promises. It promised that it was going to improve our lives when really all it's done is make it far more overwhelming. Our attention spans are lower than they've ever been. All we have now is a whole lot more of, I guess I would say, just misinformation, disinformation. We now have this burden of defining what's working, what's not, who's real, who's not. It's really made our life so much more complicated. But this idea of knowledge transfer and what a course really is meant to be, a course shouldn't just be a commoditized item. It shouldn't be just another banana in a pile of bananas that you can pick any banana and it's a banana. It really should be something that is highly personal, where you are selecting a guide and selecting somebody that resonates with you on a personal level, that you don't want to learn marketing from just anybody. You want to learn marketing from someone who is in your industry, who matches your values and what you want to bring to that industry, your vision, and you want to be able to plug into that person and benefit from their knowledge, not just a marketing course. Because if it was just a marketing course, I mean, gosh, there's plenty of marketing courses. You want something that's specific and speaks to you. That's really where the course market is going. And it's something that, Dan Kennedy, I'll give him credit for this statement. He was at a conference for people that sold, widgets, pens and pads of paper and magnets and, things that like realtors would send you in the mail. And, everybody there was talking about, oh, it's a commodity business. It's a commodity business. And he's like, well, look, if you're in a commodity business, get out. And one of the women in the audience was so offended. She storms out, wants her money back. I'm leaving. I'm tired of being insulted by this guy. She didn't stick around long enough to realize he wasn't saying get out of the business, like leave this business. He was saying get out of the fact that you're a commodity, rather than being just someone who's got 742 widgets that someone could buy. Provide systems. Maybe you provide the perfect prospecting kit for real estate agents that has an 8-step sequence of a pen, then a pad, then a magnet, then a, whatever. And all of it comes together to be this thing that hangs on your fridge that you can write your grocery list on, whatever it happens to be. But courses are no different. You go to Udemy today and you see all of these creators that are powerful, brilliant individuals, but because they've surrendered control of their content to that platform, a course that they sold 3 years ago for $500, Udemy now comes out and says, hey, guess what? It's worth $20. I know it took you 20 years to learn that, but congratulations, you get $1 per year, $20, go get them. And, really that's the commodity marketplace. I would recommend, if you're watching this or you're asking, avoid it at all costs. Unless you've got a very good plan to use the commodity marketplaces as a lead gen for what you do, stay out of it.
Okay, this is exactly what I want to talk about, especially going forward in the future and what you see as trends, because no offense, but that's what we all see. And people are like, oh, well, then why are so many people pitching how to make more courses, when in reality, we really should be talking about how we get people to really interact with us, or how to make them actually better and deliver more results, like you were saying. Get them actually to do the courses. One of the reasons why they're only $20 on Udemy is because nobody actually watches them. Right?
Yeah. And also too, like it's one of those things that we in this industry oftentimes, we don't recognize how much time we spend in our own echo chamber, that we believe everybody knows what we know. And if you really want to know where the rest of the world is on this adoption curve, look at the fact that if you go back to when GoDaddy was founded, I'm going to say, gosh, they got to be like late 90s or somewhere around there. I mean, really, really long time ago. And so let's call it 15 years ago, plus or minus. Someone in the comments can tell me when it was actually and how wrong I am on the date. But nonetheless, all of that time ago, they were doing domain names and websites. But it wasn't until about a year or two ago that Wix and Squarespace figured out a way to have websites be accessible enough that they could run mainstream marketing to it profitably. So if you think about the fact that literally just 2 years ago, now all of a sudden you can run ads on television and tell people to make a website, and people will say, you know what, you're right, I need a website, I'm going to go do that. But yet it's been around that long. This idea that, everyone's talking about courses and it's commodified, it is commodified if all you're doing is making something that someone's already made and it's totally undifferentiated. But if you look at the adoption curve of where broadband internet is going, Peter Diamandis talks about this rising billions all the time, where you've got 3 to 5 billion people coming online in the next 5 years that have never had access to broadband internet before. And guess what? They want the same stuff we do. They've got the same hobbies, passions, interests, desires for their life. They're going to want stuff from people that they identify with. So the market is also massively expanding. But this idea that everybody's already learning stuff online, if you don't believe me, try this out at your next party. Be like, hey, you ever taken any online learning? People are going to look at you like, what's that? Oh yeah, I did that in college. Like the idea that there are all of these cool things out there and available, it's not that widely known. We think it is because it's all we do. It's all we're plugged into. Our perspective is not the global perspective.
Yes, just talk to my parents and they will let you know that they have no idea what the heck I do for a living, or most people online.
Isn't it fun though to watch them when like people ask them like, what does your daughter do for a living? Like the explanation is probably always slightly different and never quite correct.
Exactly.
Like,
she has a book.
Yeah. Pod something, that thing. Internet thing. Yeah.
So, and we do have a tendency to get in our bubble, but what would you say that you could help people capitalize on it? So like, I love the fact that you're saying don't commoditize in the we're a marketer, right? But how do they go ahead and do that? Because even on the niching side, people are like, I don't want to niche too much because then it blah, 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 right? There's all these excuses. So give us some tips on how to actually not be commoditized in some, like, let's say we have a course right now that's sort of already built, but we're not selling a lot of it. How do we reinfuse it so it's not just another marketing program?
Well, first of all, the key foundation piece is going to be your transformative value. So how quickly can you get someone from their current state to their desired state with as little brain damage as possible? So if it's something where you have a course and you're not getting results, the first question is, are your users getting results? Are the people that are going through the course getting results? If they're not, it means you've got a transformative, problem that the course is not getting them to their desired state. And it's something where if that's not happening, you're never going to get that flywheel of people talking about the results that they're getting and others want those results. And this is where they got those results. So first and foremost, transformative value has to be there and has to be there in spades. This is definitely not a market where you can just put up some, bullshit, pardon my language, and that people are just going to buy it because it's well marketed. They will buy it, then they will refund and they will be mad at you and they will talk about it online and you will be embarrassed. So transformative value, hopefully we knock that one, out of the park and that's in place. Assuming that's in place, then it's really going to be the niche elements. And anyone that says, I don't want to niche down too far really hasn't ever niched down right. It's really something that you really want to view niching versus a narrowing of your market. It's not that. The visual is really more of a concentric circle, like almost like a dartboard, where it's like the goal is to hit the bullseye, the smallest, most perfect market you can possibly imagine of your most rabid fans. If you nail that, those people and their results are going to help carry you to the next circle out, the next circle out, the next circle out. So you are going to go broader and broader with what you do. But if you try to start broad, you're never really going to be able to access your market in a way that's meaningful to them. So I would say if you're starting a fitness course, a lot of fitness courses. If you've got a really unique angle, a really unbelievable story, and some epic Instagram following, you can probably succeed with a general fitness course. However, if you're going to sell a fitness course, one step better would be body weight only fitness. Great. Now I don't need to buy equipment. One step better than that would be body weight only in less than 20 minutes with household items you already have. Wow. Okay. So now I can do it in only 20 minutes with household items that I already have. Well, now let's take it one step further. Body weight workouts for, men over 40 that used to play sports and miss looking that way on your schedule, and results are guaranteed in 90 days. Now, all of a sudden, I have a market that I can speak to very specifically. The transformative value is there, and I've niched down to a market that it's like, okay, he's talking to me, and I really, really want that. Whereas I didn't wake up that morning wanting just a fitness course.
Do you think that it has to be more personality brand driven, or do you think it can still be, especially in that example, it can still be the niche is more important than the actual person that you're connecting with?
I would say they're equally important, and I wouldn't say personality driven, because I think when you say personality driven, people are like, oh, I got to be a Kardashian, or I got to be on the Jersey Shore, or whatever it is. It's not personality driven, it's story driven. That if you are able to essentially show someone that, look, I've been where you are, I'm going to join you where you are, and I'm going to show you the way that I found to get out of where I was, and I'm going to walk you through the same thing. That's the story that really illustrates that transformative value. And so the story element is going to be huge, that if your audience doesn't feel in true authenticity that you understand them, they're never going to buy from you.
Okay. What if they don't have that as a story, right? Like, what if I have friends that are jump rope guys, right? That's one of their niches. And so being able to do that, but they've always been extremely fit, but they're helping people not be. So how do you just use a lot more testimonials? Give me more about what they do in that instance.
Definitely. So there's a lot of what I would call marketing bridges that if you don't have the story, that you can use stories. Social proof is a huge one, that if you have created results for people, you don't necessarily need to tell your own story because you have stories to tell, the stories of others. And then there are also other ways. One of the popular copywriting methodologies is actually called a Blackie story. And a Blackie story is, so there I was on this bus stop, and this old man, come to find out he was, a multimillionaire who worked for the Federal Reserve, and he taught me all about how currencies really work. So now I've sort of created this persona that has given me the story that I can now share and talk about. But again, all of the marketing, I guess I would call it positioning, or ways that you can bridge into the story, if the transformative value and impact isn't there, the story won't work. There is no story in the world that will save a shitty product. It just won't happen.
Which I'm thankful for also, by the way.
Oh, totally. No, absolutely. Lord knows we've all bought enough stuff that you got it and you're like, you got to be kidding me. I mean, the world needs no more of those.
A million times over. Give me another marketing bridge, because I thought that was really awesome.
Oh, the Blackie story. That's one of my favorites. I would say one of the other ones that I really like using is definitely the third-party market data. Really digging into the research. And if you don't have credibility, then becoming credible by pointing to those that are credible. So rather than saying, I used to be fat and now I'm not, it would be, actually another good one that, quite frankly, it's a little bit risque. So I don't know, as long as your audience are adults, I'm going to use this one because it's one of my favorites. This actually was a radio ad that was worked on by Chet Holmes, one of the most brilliant marketers and positioning architects I know. Unfortunately, Chet's no longer with us, so hopefully he won't mind me telling this story. But it was actually a radio ad where Chet was working with a nutrition company. And now this nutrition company was large enough that they didn't really have a personality. There wasn't a story behind it. And it was something that they weren't using social proof. It wasn't like, these are the stories we're telling. They really relied heavily on market data. So the radio ad would say, dear men over 40, did you know that if you were born after 1975, that your father actually was twice the man you are? And what I mean by that is, did you know that since 1950, the average sperm count of males has declined, and today we are actually half the men our fathers were? Now, it really goes into if you think about it as a guy, you're like, whoa, like, wait a second, I'm like, my mind is blown. And no, I hate my dad. My dad was a jerk. Or, I really respect my dad, but he's not twice the man I am. Like, you look at something that by using market data, you're able to package that in a way that is immediately going to trigger someone. You're going to get visceral, polarizing reactions, and you now have their attention, which really is half the battle. So I would say that you're going to find, whether the data is correlational or causational, you're going to find extremely powerful market data that you can use to begin that bonding process. Again, if you don't have your story and you don't have the story of others, market data would be another one I would really look at to say, important credible source says blank, blank, blank. Oh my gosh, now I've got your attention. Let's talk about how I can help.
Well, especially the psychology behind it, though, too. And that's what Chet Holmes is so amazing at. It's not like saying, these are the stats. Ta-da, right? Like the way he did it is genius. What do you think about, so if somebody doesn't have that type of marketing person on their team, because no offense, he's a genius and it's hard to get people that are as good as he was, right? What do you do if you're trying to test something like this marketing bridge that you talked about? Like, okay, we've got third-party data. We feel like this is kind of good. I know you're not the marketing guy specifically of the company, but I know you know a lot about it. So what do you think they should do if the owner isn't like a genius in marketing then too, and doesn't really know how to tell their marketing team to really go at this in the right way?
I would say if you're an owner and you have a marketing team that you feel like could do better, but they just don't get it, I would get them books and I would make them read them. It's really one of those things that there's, I would tell you first and foremost that Dan Kennedy always says the number one sin of any business owner is outsourcing your marketing. It doesn't mean you don't have a marketing team, but it means that if you're not overseeing the voice and the elements of marketing, you probably won't succeed as well as you potentially could. So I would encourage you that if you've completely I would encourage you to delegate your marketing, but you should never abdicate your marketing. And that's, I guess, is the distinction I would draw. But I would say that if you have a marketing team that you're like, gosh, how do they do what we're talking about here? I would maybe take a look at The Ultimate Sales Machine, book by Chet Holmes, amazing, amazing playbook. And then really select one element of it and say, okay, team, we're drilling this and we're going to work on it until we get it. So maybe it is market research. Guys, I want you to go find 10 studies that are related to our product. Cool. We got these 10. Okay. Which one of these now relate to the product that we'd like to sell? Cool. Okay. What are 3 ways that we can take what we just figured out and package it into a marketing message and test it? So it's really going to be something that even if you have terrible, terrible instincts and a terrible, terrible team, and all of this stuff is completely new to you, by being willing to just drill it and test it in very small controlled environments, you'll be able to let the data cover over any of the deficiencies in the marketing acumen.
I really appreciate that too, because a lot of the times as an owner, you're like, oh, that's my marketing team. But if they're not necessarily good, you hire an outside consultant, but then they don't, and then everybody's not really doing anything, and then you don't get any results and they're all mad. When in reality, they need to actually be paying attention to your marketing strategy, because that's where your money comes from, people.
Yeah, it's really something. If there's one thing that I think faster than anything indicates someone who doesn't necessarily understand how business works. And I know for your listeners, they're at a more mature stage in business, so I'm sure all of them know this. But the reality of it is the vast majority of people think I hired a marketer. And so really now that I have a marketer, it's a slot machine that always pays out. Like every time I put a quarter in, I get more money out. And it's like, do you have any idea how hard that is? Like I mean, if it was that easy, I mean, we'd all be following the yellow brick road and going to the Wizard of Oz, because it's like, oh yeah, I just woke up this morning and because I understand marketing, now every campaign I have works well and pays out every time. It's like, no, if I could wake up and trade a dime for $1 every time, I mean, oh my gosh, I wouldn't leave the house and I'd do it as much as possible. But this idea that I think most people have is it's like, oh, well, I have a marketing team, so my marketing should just convert that way. And it's like, it's not quite that simple. It can be, but it's going to take a lot of repetition and a lot of trial and a lot of, being willing to kind of put it through its paces and refine as you go. But, this idea, if you're listening to this and thinking, gosh, I just wish I could hire a marketer. It's like, I'm just telling you, if you just hire a marketer, it's probably still going to take some time.
Thank you. Because that's the other piece. Everyone's like, oh, you have digital courses or whatever, but yeah, you still have to sell the courses, but it's easy. Mostly easy to sell 1 to 10 courses. And then as soon as you start going farther, you're like, oh yeah, there's a whole thing to this. It is a whole skill set on its own. And a lot of owners don't necessarily have that, but should have at least hardcore pieces of it in order to tell their team what to do also, right? Because it's ever evolving and moving. I know we have to start wrapping. Oh yeah, go ahead.
That's where the one thing I would say to people that are listening and they're wondering how to have a really high performing marketing team. I use this Bruce Lee quote all the time, but it really is relevant to me. It's, I don't fear the man who knows 10,000 kicks. I fear the man who knows one kick that he's practiced 10,000 times. I see so many business owners that believe that they need to be on all channels all the time. And the reality of it is, until you have a business that can support all channels all the time, you don't need to be on all channels all the time. There are businesses that are still selling hundreds of millions of dollars a year using this weird thing called mail. It's paper. It shows up in a box outside of your house. If you're, a millennial, it's probably the thing that you don't check and you manage all your bills online. But there are people still using mail effectively. So whatever channel resonates the most with you, that's the channel that you should make your realm, that you should master, and that you should figure out how to make it work for your business. Because once that channel is cranking, that's going to throw off resources for you to then do the same thing for another channel and another channel. But if you take all of the channels and apply them mediocre at best across the board, you're just going to have a really mediocre strategy on all of the channels versus having one channel just crushing it, bringing in sales.
Recipe for disaster, but so many people are doing it's ridiculous. I'm actually interviewing next Joy from Postcard Mania, and I chat with people and they're like, people still do postcards. I'm like, yes, people still do postcards.
and massively successfully too. Like really, really well.
Yeah. Just because we have the internet does not mean it's the most converting in many aspects, in many ways, just so everybody's clear.
Well, you got to say to people, it's like, do you realize that people still bought stuff before the internet actually happened?
What? No.
I know. Sears and Roebuck catalog. People bought it through mail back when there wasn't even a U.S. Postal Service. They still bought stuff. So, yeah.
Thankfully, we've come a long way because I really don't want to order. I like drones potentially soon coming to my house and delivering my Amazon packages. But
Hey, I'm in.
actually, on that note too, what do you see as the trends, right? You're sort of on the forefront of this. So what do you see as the trends in the next 10 to 20 years in this space?
Wow. I would say that I see a lot of unique things happening in what education is. That education has long been relegated to this realm of you go spend 4 years somewhere going to classes to learn something. Today, we are moving far more towards an effectiveness element to it, that if I can learn it in an hour, I don't need to spend 3 months or 6 months or a year. So the desire for that transformative value is only going up. And I think you're going to see the market continue to really skew towards the people that truly deliver the result. That it's not anymore good enough to just have a product that has the information in it, but you really need to be able to create that result. So I think you're going to see these one-dimensional products really lose a lot of ground to the multi-dimensional approach. So the product that has group coaching calls and Q&A, or live event components, support groups, things that really get the relationship piece and the results element, I think are going to become much bigger. We at Kajabi are really going to be diving deep into this community feature that we're going to be releasing end of January, because we also believe that a space that's largely been filled right now by the free option of a Facebook group, I think you're going to see that really go away. The idea that you can create transformation in a Facebook group is insane. You're battling with cat pictures and, relatives and everything else. It's like, you're not going to have a meaningful transformative experience in the most distracted portal available. Not to mention, all you're doing is uploading your best buyers for your competitors to target via ads. So I think you're going to see people really move back to reevaluating, what is this idea of community and connection, and how do I leverage that to create results and that transformative value in my products? So I think you're going to see community and connection really get reevaluated in some exciting ways.
Well, I really appreciate I don't like digital products in general because it doesn't have the community and connection, and they usually just throw them in a Facebook group and go, hopefully you figure it out. Great. And I think Facebook and being in that space is a recipe for disaster. But do you think it's more, especially because I'm a super geek, do you think it's more on the adaptive technology side and getting better at that? Or do you really think the core is the community and connection that really facilitates the learning side?
So it's going to be both. I think it's the community and connection that is the actual where change happens element. But the big challenge is with Facebook, they've built it to be addictive. They have built literally every element of that to prompt us to stay plugged into it. So it's going to take some people, I think, realizing I guess I would call it the backlash from what social media brings with it. And we're now just beginning to see it. You're now beginning to see all of the data and privacy abuses come out. You're now beginning to see all of the manipulation of it coming out. So I think that the technology platforms that are going to be built to leverage this idea of community and connection, they're going to take what worked and the best practices to create that transformative value in our industry specifically. But I think they're going to try and remove a lot of the distraction and things that stand in the way of it. And I think that's a big trend that I'm noticing. And I think the other trend that I'm noticing is I think creators are getting tired of relegating their future to platforms they don't control. You're seeing more and more people get thrown off of platforms because their views might not agree with whoever holds the keys to that kingdom. And really, I mean, you're seeing freedom of speech in general just erode to a point that it's getting diluted, that you can't say anything unless nobody's offended. And it's like, well, then really, why are you doing it? So when you look at all these creators that have, quite frankly, made YouTube, made Patreon, made Udemy, made Skillshare, and then all of a sudden they're being told what they can teach and how they can teach it, that's pretty problematic. It's almost like if you go back to New York in its early developing years, you had all of the cool tastemakers, the artists, the individuals driving culture forward, living in Soho. They made it so cool that they couldn't afford Soho anymore. So they got pushed out to outer reaches of Manhattan. Then they made those cool, and then they got pushed out of Manhattan entirely and are now in, Williamsburg, Brooklyn. But now they've made that too cool, and so now they're getting pushed into Queens. It's sort of this situation where I think you're beginning to see creators say, you know what? I'm not going to come in and make your platform just so that you can then tell me that I can't be on your platform. So I think that you're going to also see a real desire for influencers, creators, celebrities, individuals that have influence. They're going to want to begin to control their media versus being controlled by their media.
A million times over. Yeah, because ripped out from underneath you way too many times. Yeah, friends of mine off Facebook, off of all those things. And you're like, oh, great. There goes all my hard work. How awesome. Well, one quick question before I ask my final question, because to me, we're told that everybody can be a creator. Everybody's got something in them, blah, blah, blah. But there's not very many courses on how to create a course for the educational side so that people actually get better at learning. Do you know any books or resources or anything like that in that space? Because I feel like I have clients that try and create courses and trying to go based on adaptive technology or learning styles. Like a lot of creators don't even realize that there's a million different learning styles. And when we try and figure out how to create the course, there's a lot more into it than just sort of putting out a bunch of information. So do you know the best way or some resources that we can refer to on that?
In all sincerity, I would say there's not a best way because, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. I can go through every aspect of instructional design and, the auditory, visual, kinesthetic learners and how everybody, consumes information. But quite frankly, even those terms are a little bit dated and someone's going to tell me that there's now like 37 others that I'm unaware of. So rather than give you, I guess I would call it the instructional design du jour, I will give you the never fail, will not be outdated ever format that I would go with for course creation. It would be, what's the current state? What's their desired state? How can you get them from point A to point B? Take a couple people through it and then ask them how it went. Where did you get stuck? Where would you like more? Where would you like less? Where did you get confused? And after you go through that process 3, 4, 5 times, you will have caught enough of all of the different types of learners and different types of methodologies that your course will be facilitated in a way that speaks to all of them. And you'll be able to do it far faster than trying to learn all of the areas of instructional design only to have them change. Because if you learned instructional design 10, 15 years ago, it would be very different in application today when Microsoft is doing studies showing that our attention span is now less than a goldfish. We're sub 8 seconds on our attention span. So what instructional design was back then when you were in a classroom environment where no one had mobile devices to today, very, very different. So I would encourage you, rather than trying to focus on the right format, focus on the only thing that matters, which is how can you get the most results for the most people, and then continuing to ask them, how can I refine it?
See, I love that. We do that method. We call them betas. We've run a bazillion betas for us too. And I just wish I had a little bit more, because when I go back through instructional design, it is so outdated, it's ridiculous. It's like, and so I just haven't found an updated medium that can sort of go, oh, you know what? When we're looking for this refined result, and they said these 3 things that I need to change, which order is the best order, right? So I know there's experts in this, and we've hired experts. I just didn't know if there was anything in that. I highly, highly agree with you that the results are the most thing that matters, but it's that trying to get that subset of types of people in it and who to listen to and who not to is.
Yeah, for us, we always really go back to how can we teach methods that no matter what changes, what trends take place, they will continue to work, because there's no doubt about it. There's huge value in a lot of those constructs. It's just going to take you a long time to internalize it. And so it's something that, do I believe that you can get 80% of the value by putting a course together and iterating? I do.
Yep. A million times over. I just want a robot to just tell me all the things.
That would be pretty awesome.
We're not there yet.
Don't worry. Amazon's working on it. From what I understand, they're getting close.
The world we're going to live in 20 years is going to be completely different. On that note, okay, what's one thing listeners can do this week, one action that they can do this week that will help them with their goal of 1 million?
So I would say I'll share something from my learning of looking back over my 2018, now going into 2019. And I'll use a quote from Warren Buffett to start what prompted my reevaluation of what I looked at over the past year. And the quote from Warren Buffett is, the difference between successful and really successful people is really successful people say no to almost everything. And so if you as an entrepreneur are wondering how you can really drive your business forward in powerful ways, you're going to need to get a lot better at a lot fewer things. And so as you look at your calendar, how much of it is taken up with meetings that don't have an agenda, that aren't prepared in advance, that rarely have outcomes or action items assigned after them? How many phone calls are you taking because you got someone on LinkedIn who said, hey, I'd love to talk to you. Can you schedule 15 minutes? How many ways are you giving up the one asset you never will get more of, which is your time, and assigning it to things that really aren't aligned with your interests or goals? So for me, it would really be start saying no a lot more. And quite frankly, say no unapologetically. That, it's certainly something, don't feel that you owe anyone an explanation. If you don't want to get on a call, don't get on a call. Just reply and say, hey, more of an email guy. And guess what? If they can't surmise the point that they have in a 5-line email versus a 30-minute phone call, you shouldn't be working with them anyway.
I love that. I love that. More of an email guy. That just answers everything for you. And then it doesn't feel.
Yeah, but I mean, just for everyone listening, it literally took me like 5 years of being the guy that I just totally felt like because people wanted a phone call with me, I was required to give them one. And I'm like, all of a sudden I'm like, what if I just said I don't really like phone calls? How do you argue with that? Like, well, you should like phone calls. You're a jerk. I'm like, well, okay, we probably should work together then. Like, it's those little things. But I mean, for me, it's really one of those things, saying no a whole lot more and making room to really evaluate deep, impactful, transformational ideas in your business is where the big change is going to happen, because very few great businesses, if any, were ever built by being on email all the time, being on phone calls all the time, and wondering how your business is going to move forward when you're too busy just doing random things based on other people's agendas.
Perfect way to end this. Make sure everybody that's listening actually says no at least sometime, once this week, twice this week, ideally 100 times this week, because we're getting bombarded by tons of things all day long. Where can we find more about you and Kajabi and check it out?
Just head over to kajabi.com, give our trial a try. I would highly recommend grabbing the 28-day challenge. You will love the coaching and the step-by-step process that takes you from zero to marketing and selling your course in 28 days. And we would love to help you find success in this lovely world of digital entrepreneurship.
Thank you so much for coming on the show today and giving your wisdom, because this industry is such an interesting thing, and I love your integrity in it. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Absolute pleasure, Jamie. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you want to check out more amazing resources, I'm only curating the best of the best. Go check out eventualmillionaire.com. You can take the Eventual Millionaire quiz, figure out where you are in business and what you need right now. Plus, you can look at curated resources specifically for you on the new Start Here page. I'm so excited. Please join us. Please let me know if you need anything at all. I'm here for you. And have a fantastic day. Bye.